thank you. It's an honor to be invited to play for this wonderful group. I've heard a lot of great things. Jackie was instrumental in getting me here, but this lady right here, the president, she's somebody I hope to speak to in the future, maybe some other things. But thank you. So this is a fairly short little thing. I'm going to play some old stuff that I'm sure, I don't mean to that you're old. I think you're knowledgeable of some of the great classic tunes. I play for many groups, and oftentimes people look at it, oh, I don't know what that is. So, but
we like the old one.
What's that?
We like the old one.
Yeah, so I've got a few tunes. So what's going to happen after you go home tonight? There's three possibilities. One is you're going to have a hearing deficit. Two, you're going to be walking around the house humming tunes that I played. Or three, you're going to be in front of your computer looking up Robert Burns poetry. Robert Burns, who's that guy?
I love it.
Great Scottish poet. Anyway, there's no gigs I do without a poem or two from Robert Burns. Any Scots here? Nice. How about some Irish folk? God bless the Irish. So anyway, what I like to do is I play a tune and say, hey, you know what that tune is? So here's one for you. This one I'll give you a hint. Think of Daniel Day-Lewis. Anybody heard of that?
The Last of the Mohicans.
Last of the Mohicans. That was a request by the president. I thought I would play that for her. So I grew up in Texas and Florida. My family is Scottish and Irish. My grandmother was a devout Irish Catholic. My grandfather was the cheap, tight-fisted Scots. Anybody ever hear of that?
Yes.
Well, anyway, then you kind of know. My grandfather was a Protestant. My grandmother was a Catholic. Of course, the comments that were made to each other in the house when I was growing up, I never understood until years later what these things were. And it was pure banter about the religious. You know, my grandfather, they would run out of booze and, we'll find a drunken Irishman, he'll buy us a drink. And those are some things like that, and then lots of Robert Burns quotes that I never understood until I got in college when I understood some things. So has anybody heard of Robert Burns?
Oh, yes.
So have you heard of a haggis? You know what a haggis is, right?
Yes.
A haggis, let me tell you. So I'm going to make sure everybody doesn't get this wrong. A haggis is a Scottish sausage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what they tell everybody. What the haggis is, it's a little furry creature that runs around in the Highlands. It can only be killed at the sound of a bagpipe with the sword that was swung by William Wallace under a full moon. And that's the real story. Robert Burns was a poet who wrote in the common speech, the vernacular of the common lowland man. And he wrote a poem about a sausage. It wasn't comical back then, it was patriotic. But these days it kind of goes like this. Fair far your honest sunset face, great chieftain of the pudding race, aboon them your talk your place, pinch triple therm. Well, are you warrior graces longs my arm? The groaning trencher, there ye feel, your hardy's but a distant heel. Your pen would help to mend a mill in time of need, while through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. His knife, see rustic labor date, and cut ye up like ready slate, trenching your gushing entrails bright. like ony ditch. Then, oh, what a glorious sight. Warm, reeking, rich. Then horn for horn they stretch and strive. Deal. Take the hindmost on they drive till all their wheels sword gates built like drones. Then, odd goodman, mace like to ride, bethink it homes. Is there that o'er his French ragout, or olio would stall a sou of fricassee? Would mock or spoo with perfect scorner? Looks down with sneering, scornful view upon sick a dinner. Poor devil, see him o'er his trash, as fickless as a withered rash. His spindle shank a gid whiplash, his neva knit through bloody flood or field to dash. Oh, how unfit! But mark, the rustic hag is fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread, clapping his wily knee a blade, and he'll mock it whistle, and legs and arms and heads will sneed like taps of thistle. Ye powers, while bushmen kind their care, and dish them out their bill of fare. Old Scotland wants nae stinking ware that jumps in luggies, but if you wish a grateful prayer, gie her a haggis. Robert Burns. What is it? Coming through the rye.
Coming through the rye. Coming through the rye.
Coming through the rye. And here's one I know. You can't mess this one up. Everybody knows this one.
The high road.
What is it?
Bonnie Banks of Loch Lomond.
Yeah.
Okay. The Scottish version is called Loch Lomond. Does anyone know the Irish title? Whoa, red is the rose.
Oh.
The Irish took the same melody. I don't know who stole it first, either the Scots. But anyway, so St. Paddy's Day I'll play that and I'll get challenged by people about that. So, hey, by the way, on St. Paddy's Day I play out a lot and I have people come up to me and go, hey, I'm Irish too. I'm like, you know I'm dressed as a Scot, right? Well, that's Irish. It's Irish. It's all the same thing. I get that all the time. So anyway, for the Irish, here's a set for the Irish.
Rising of the moon.
They're wearing, hanging men and women are wearing the green.
Wearing of the green. Wearing of the green. That's good. All right, so who's the Irish folk here? So,
Half and half.
so I meet these folks. Oh yeah, we're right off the boat. What do you mean? Well, we're 100% Irish. We're right off the boat. My family, we're right off the boat. Really? Well, I bet you really know some good tunes then, you know? Oh, yeah. Well, throw me one. What do you got? You see the little brain-housing group turning and they're thinking. It's just, Danny Boy. So, that being said, I've had, you know, this is the Highland pipe. The Highland pipe is very flat sounding. It wasn't really meant to play songs that were sung like that. My dad wrote a version, and this is the Danny Boy that we wrote that works on the Highland pipe, which, by the way, is a very flat sounding instrument. You know, this instrument wasn't meant to sound nice, ever, for any reason.
It scared the hell out of me.
That's right. It was meant to represent the warlike spirit of the people. It was used in battle. It's still considered an instrument of war on the books in England. People were hung for playing this instrument. The first thing that the English did when they got into Scotland, and the English did not beat the Scots beat the Scots. The first thing they did was, there ain't no more playing of this thing. Well, why? Well, you know what? People were throwing their weapons down and running the minute they heard this and then saw this idiot with a skirt on coming over the hill. Highly controversial story. The Germans say it didn't happen. The Scots said it did. A regiment in World War I was coming over the mountains and were led by a platoon of bagpipers. And the Germans threw down their weapons and surrendered without a shot being fired because they said, that's the ladies from hell right there, and we don't play that. Because there's so much history, a description about the devil playing a pipe, and witches and warlocks. And Robert Burns wrote some great poems at the Tam O'Shanter. Anybody ever been to the Robert Burns Centre in Scotland? If you ever get a chance to go to Scotland, in his town in Galloway, there is a place they put up, it's called the Burns Centre. And it's like a giant auditorium. You go in and you can look at pictures and video. But what they do is they enact one of his poems called Tam O'Shanter. You know, the cat, Tam O'Shanter, but they called this guy Tam O'Shanter in the poem. And he's running from witches and warlocks in the night. And the Brigadoon, you've heard of that, the Brigadoon is there. It's the real bridge that the story comes from, where if you cross the bridge, the witch can't cross over. And so he wrote this poem about being chased by witches and warlocks. And so there's lots of history of Piper being a devil.
But were they not the most educated in the whole clan because they sent them off? Because they were the ones that were sent to school to learn this so they could lead the troops. Yes,
and one of the things about the Piper, this always comes up with some of my people that travels. Why was there no pipers in the Civil War? This was presented many, many times, and the only reason we can come up with, because all the Scots that were here was because the Scots that were here were not part of the elite that cast the Scots out of Scotland during the clearances. They kept those pipers there, and the people that came were the poor Scots, and they did not bring the tradition of the pipe, but what they brought was their spirit. And they came here and they literally created what we have become to know, bluegrass and some of the great country music. They had their lineage is in that. But I always ask, how come there's no pipes? And all the Scots, but that's the way it was. And I'm still looking.
There were pipes in the Revolutionary War.
I heard that, but I tried to volunteer for some of these in the Northeast, some of the groups that
Reenactors.
In Bunker Hill area, that area, and they kind of laughed at me. I don't know, it'd be kind of hard to squeeze you in, but anyway. So, do you remember what I was going to play? I got off.
Yeah, your rendition of Danny Boy.
Danny Boy, yes. Here's a Danny Boy version. It works. So, do you know the difference between a bagpipe and a lawnmower? You can tune the lawnmower. Very fickle instrument, very, 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 very fickle instrument. Now, these are called the drones, these things, these pipes. That instrument, this is classified as a bagpipe, but the name of it is the Highland pipe, or in Scots, it's called the Feet Moor, which means the great pipe. There are pipes, a lot of countries. Ireland plays a keyed instrument called an uilleann, which means elbow, and you pump it, you don't blow into it. The Scots gave up to England. The English said, you know, you will not march and play a bagpipe instrument. So the Irish said, we're going to sit down and we're going to go like this between our legs or like that, and we're going to pump the air into it, and we don't break the law. Because the pipes, this scared those guys really, really bad. The English did not, this was absolutely not the swords, this thing scared them, because the Scots were so patriotic that at times they might be like, oh, I'm dead. Jock, I'm dead, this is it. And then, you know what, Jock, I think I got one more in me. Go chase down an English and cut his head off. They didn't like that. The patriotism, this brought out the patriotism. And so there's a lot of great history. And like I said, people were killed for playing this instrument. So here's a tune I wrote for my wife. She said to me one day, she says, you didn't write me no tunes. So my kids had all these rabbits in this club. It was called the 4-H Rabbit Club. So I'm watching these rabbits, and rabbits do what they do. I said, okay, I got a tune for you. So I wrote this tune. It's called Cindy's Rabbitry. It's a slow jig. And when you think of it, you just think of what rabbits do best. Questions about anything I'm wearing, anything I'm doing here before I leave? And I know this was a quick thing.
I don't know where you're going, so.
I am going to, maybe today or tomorrow, we're trying to put together a group to go out to Mayfield, to Ground Zero for where there are tornadoes. Yeah. Apparently, it's worse than we thought. I didn't realize it until last night. So there's some people we know that are there, and we're trying to organize to gather some things. But what's happened is, the materials that they need have changed literally overnight, drastically. It went from clothes and water to now they don't need that, to now they need flashlights, batteries, extension cords for generators and stuff. And this looks like the long term for these folks. This is pretty bad. I have some people that are right there. They're saying, Mike, this is the worst thing he's ever seen. And this guy's a Vietnam vet. He heavily decorated. He said, I've never seen anything like this. So the tornado hit them right on and literally wiped out whole communities. So I'm going to try to do my part. I'm nobody. I'm just somebody who's trying to do a little bit. And right at the holidays, too. This is the thing about it. So, but, yes?
I was going to ask you about the pipe. Is it got a diaphragm and you blow air into it?
Yes, there's a bag in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a leather bag. Mm-hmm. And there's reeds inside where these pipes come out, inside the bag.
Reed?
Yes, they're reeds. They're high-tech reeds now. Modern technology's allowed us to do a lot more things than back in the day. And then there's a reed right here. So this is the chanter that does that melody part that you hear. And this is the drones, these pipes, they do the background hum that you hear. And they're very difficult to tune. And I play a concert grade, and I say that because there are street band pipers. God bless them. They're the best people you ever meet. They play slightly different than me because they're Good Time Charlie guys. And so, like I was saying, this takes years upon years and years to learn to tune this instrument. I've been playing since I was 10 years old. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm having an issue in here. It's because of the roof, the ceiling. I hear something maybe you don't hear. But it is a very fickle instrument. It's like making love to an octopus.
When you blow out, does it come out all three?
Yes.
And you have the different holes make a different note?
Yes. And there's a block so the air does not come back. And what happens is I tune this reed with the drones and we try to get that sound where it all sounds the same. And it just makes that little haunting sound that you hear.
And do you feel good and strong when you have to blow that air in?
It's not a laborious instrument in that regard. There's lots of ladies, little ladies too, by the way, who play the great Highland war pipe. And they do quite well. Actually, they probably brought something to the instrument that the Scots, the old Scots didn't like, and it was called finesse. Oh. And so there was a group of people who wanted to keep this instrument to make it look and appear obscure and secretive, and that you had to go through 25 years and donate your firstborn child to become a piper. Because there are poems written about this. To the make of a piper goes 7 years, and you will have parley with the old folks at home. And with the fairies and all these little people who supposedly they said the instrument had connections with. There's a lot of old myths, but there's a lot of women playing this instrument. Am I right? Angela has spent a lot of time at Highland festivals, as I have, and they're out there and they're accepted like anybody. Hey, come on, let's go! And they march in bands and they play. It's wonderful. Pipe bands are a great group to be in. It's one of the best. I've been doing it since I was 10. I did my sister's wedding at 12 years old. When I joined the Marine Corps, my mother sent my pipes to me, and I was playing on a field in Camp Pendleton, California, and this guy pulled up in a Jeep. Who are you? And all this, and next thing you know, he was a colonel. I ended up being pulled out of the platoon that I was in. I was to become a Jeep driver, and just before we came back into the regiment on a 20-mile hike, I was to get out, and another guy took over, and I was going to pipe the battalions and regiments in. That's what I did for 3 years. And so the pipes have done a lot of things for me. Then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to work for the Connecticut Department of Corrections. I married a Yankee. I'm from Texas and Florida originally. And so my buddy was from Connecticut. And I said, where's that? So we went to, I went up there and I got locked into a job. Went to a funeral, big funeral, and it was a guy in the prison system died. And I said to the warden, I said, I brought my pipes. I said, do you mind? And he kind of chuckled at me. Well, then it's nasty, you know, kind of, and I'm like, all right. He said, yeah. After that, hey, you, come here. What's your name? Where are you from? All this. Next thing I know, true story, I created the Connecticut Department of Corrections bagpipe band, and I trained most of the people. From the last 10 years of my career, I wore a kilt more than I did a prison guard uniform. And what I did was, they sent me around. I played for kids dying of cancer, dignitaries, police officers killed in line of duty, and things like that. Firemen that killed. That's what I did for the Connecticut Department of Corrections. And I tell people the story and they laugh. You're kidding me. I spent more time in a kilt for the Connecticut Department of Corrections than I actually did as a prison guard.
They use pipes at funerals and at commemorative
Yes,
events.
yes.
That's a mark of respect.
Graduation ceremonies for the cadets, oh yeah. So the pipes have taken me to a lot of nice places that I would never get to go. I played in castles. All right, who knows this movie called The Witches of Eastwick? All right, you know the castle in Massachusetts? I can't remember the name of it, but I've done weddings there. And I always told my wife, yeah, hey, remember that spot? I almost broke my neck tripping over that rock.
Victoria loved it, you know, Balmoral.
Yes, yes, yes.
The pipes play every morning.
Yes. So, listen, this is a wonderful group, and I hope I get to come back. I'm going to communicate with Angela.
Yep.
However, Scots don't just say goodbye. You know that, right?
They say all the time.
Should all acquaintance be forgot and ne'er brought to mind? Should all acquaintance be forgot in our lang syne? And surely you'll be your pint stop, and surely I'll be mine, and we'll talk a cup of kindness yet for long lang syne. And we twa hae round about the braes and pulled the gowans fine. But we've wandered, mony a weary fit, St. Auld Lang Syne. We twa hae paidled in the burn, frae morning sun to dine. But seas atween us, braid hae roared, St. Auld Lang Syne. And there's a hand, my trusty fear, and gives a hand to thine. And we'll talk a right good willy wat for Auld Lang Syne. For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne. We'll talk a cup of kindness shed for Auld Lang Syne. Merry Christmas to all of you. And don't forget about those folks out in Mayville.
Thank you.